Not to leave
even
Manchester
triple
United.
his salary, didn't he? The opportunity to potentially earn somewhere near £750,000 a week, if reports are to be believed, to join Al Hilal. But he's decided he wants to remain in the top competition in Europe, in the Premier League. That's where he wants to stay. And you can understand why. He's only 30 years of age. He turns 31 in September. The argument was, with the season that Manchester United had, would he want to stay there based on what they achieved, finishing 15th in the Premier League table, a disappointing performance in the Europa League final as well. But having had a conversation with his family, he's decided he wants to stay put. There were some really interesting quotes from last summer when he signed this new contract at Manchester United, which takes him up to 2027 with an option to extend until 2028. He said, "I wouldn't have signed this deal if I didn't believe my best moments in the United shirt are still to come. I can see how positive the future is going to be, and I'm relishing leading this team forward." Let's bear in mind what he's done in a United shirt this season. There is an argument, if Bruno Fernandes wasn't there, if he wasn't fit this season, things could look even worse for Manchester United this year. The fans love him. 82% of fans voted him their player of the year this season. He was stunning at times for Manchester United. He couldn't quite get them that silverware to make this season a success. But it's a really encouraging statement for Ruben Amorim, for Ineos as well, that the captain wants to stay, that he believes in the project. Clearly, he believes United can get back to the level. I think there's an ego that Bruno Fernandes has. Players want to join United still because they have that ego believing that they can take this club back to where they were, where they're supposed to be. I think it's really encouraging that he's clearly feeling vindicated in that decision, and he's feeling that United are doing the right things in this summer window. He's encouraged.
James, there's a but, and it's a big but, Mark, because £100 million could have gone a long way to rebuilding Manchester United. Do you think everyone at Old Trafford is delighted that Fernandes is staying?
I think ultimately this was a commercial decision and a footballing decision, and the footballing decision has won. But I think those in the commercial part of Manchester United would have said, like, this is a big deal here, this is a lot of money. The accountants would have been happy. That would have been a huge chunk towards rebuilding Manchester United over the course of this summer for someone who's in their 30s. But he's a leader, he's a captain, he's someone that's been so instrumental to Manchester United over the course of the last few years. And like James says, without him, where would they be? And I think if you were to ask honestly the hierarchy of Manchester United, what would you like in this situation? They'd probably be split, with some saying time to get rid because we're never going to recoup that type of money for a 30-plus-year-old. The others will be saying we need him as a part of our rebuild, because if we don't have someone like him on the pitch, how are we going to perform? We need these young players to learn from someone with his passion and experience. And I think that would have been very similar with the fan base as well. But ultimately, this has been about football. And Manchester United are now going to have to find other ways to regenerate this squad without £100 million in the back pocket from this man.
That was going to be my next point, James. Amorim says we're getting the money from elsewhere. Where?
Well, you look at the wide attacking players they have right now, players that are returning from their loan spells. Anthony had a successful loan spell at Real Betis. Marcus Rashford impressed in spells at Aston Villa before his season ended early due to injury. Alejandro Garnacho, what's his future? There's a reports elsewhere that Ruben Amorim's already told him to go and find a club this summer. There's plenty of money there potentially for United. Jadon Sancho could be another player they'll sell in this window. I think they could have got potentially £100 million for a 30-year-old. They'd never have thought when he signed that contract last summer they'd get money for him. I think when they signed that contract for 4 years, there was acceptance that he probably wouldn't be any resale value at the end of that contract, that he would stay at this club for those 4 years. There are players they can sell. Whether or not they can command fees of somewhere near £80 to £100 million for any of those other players, I don't think they can. There's clearly things they can do around pure profit with academy graduates. I know that's not what Manchester United fans want to hear when you talk about players like Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, but there are players there to be sold. But of course, if you sold Bruno Fernandes for £100 million, then that gives you a huge amount of wiggle room to do even more in this transfer window. But saying that, he's going to stay put, and I think that is really encouraging for Manchester United and Ineos. It's been a dreadful season. I was speaking on this show a year ago, and there was so much encouragement about what Manchester United did last summer. They backed Erik ten Hag. We saw what happened. Things went wrong there. But I think the start of this transfer window for Matheus Cunha to commit his future to Manchester United, for Bruno Fernandes, the captain, to commit his future, that can only be a good thing. Important to note as well that United never actually had a decision to make because there wasn't a concrete bid that came in from Al Hilal. What they would have done, we wait to see. Well, we won't find out, but what they would have done, it would have been fascinating, because I think it would have been a dagger blow to lose the captain, I think.
OK.
Just one quick word on that. So, obviously, Al Hilal playing in the Club World Cup, they wanted a big marquee signing. They thought it might be this man. It's not going to be this man, but they're going to get Simone Inzaghi, the man that just took Inter Milan to the Champions League final. So, Plan B, a big hitter, but the head coach.
Yeah, much more on Zaghi coming up after 5:30. Right, James just mentioned there that they've got Cunha over the line. Brian Mbeumo wants to go to Manchester United. Now, explain something to me. They've had a dreadful season. They appear to be in disarray off the pitch with cuts and whatever. What's the appeal of Manchester United?
I think we've seen over the last 24 hours, Bruno Fernandes could have gone and got £750,000 rumoured per week. He's decided to stay on what he's on at Manchester United. He's turned down the big money. Matheus Cunha had loads of options in the Premier League and across Europe because of the release clause. He's decided to go to Manchester United. With all that recent history of that club not performing, they still have a huge pool for players, regardless of no European football. And I guess when you look at this man, Brian Mbeumo, been absolutely outstanding since he joined Brentford in 2019, and he had options on the table from other clubs playing in the Champions League, and he again looks to have decided Manchester United is where my future lies. Now, I think that shows just the pull that the club has. To go into the detail of this particular deal, now, Brentford have the option of 1 year plus a further year on his contract. No release clause, but they believe the way he's performed since he arrived in 2019, 200 plus appearances, around 70 goals, he's earned the right to move on. He's earned the right to play for a big club. He's earned the right to prove himself at the highest level. Now, whilst they don't want to lose him, they accept he has given everything for Brentford whilst he's been there. So therefore, they are happy to listen to offers, those that they feel reflect the value of the player, which we understand to be around £60 million. There's been no club-to-club talk at this stage, but there is a confidence that Brian Mbeumo wants to join Manchester United. And normally, when the player says the right noises publicly about, well, this is the right opportunity for me, it's only a matter of time before you get to the formality of the two clubs speaking. So that's the situation there. We know that this is one potentially to happen, but it's just a matter of time. And that will be a big part of what Manchester United are doing, that rebuild, and in particular having two number 10s, which is what Ruben Amorim wants. And you can imagine, Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, that could be very dangerous.
James, great signing if they get it over the line.
He's been remarkable this season. 20 Premier League goals he scored for a club like Brentford, and Wissa deserves immense credit as well. So does Thomas Frank for getting the very best out this player. I think there have been times that it was the BMW, wasn't it, with Ben Rama and Watkins, but it felt this man didn't quite get the move. He didn't get the limelight. It was the other players that did, but he deserves that now. He's probably surpassed what the likes of Ivan Toney have done in a Brentford shirt. When you look at what they've achieved this season, what a statement it would be for Manchester United. They can bring in Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, two of the most impressive attacking players in the Premier League this season, to the club in June. There's still plenty of time to go in this transfer window, but for those two to be there through the door for the first day of pre-season, what a statement of intent that is, what a sign that is. We're back in Ruben Amorim here.
Right, we touched on Jadon Sancho just a moment ago, but I want to get into this because on the surface, Mark, it looks like Chelsea are going, here, £5 million, you can have him back. Explain why it's not that simple.
Yeah, Manchester United could have potentially a little problem on their hands with a number of players that they actually don't really want at the football club this summer, so therefore they need to shift him on. Their thinking would have been, right, he's gone to Chelsea, no problem there. The contractual situation was it was an obligation if Chelsea finished higher than 14th in the Premier League that they had to purchase Jadon Sancho for £25 million. They can get out of that by paying £5 million to Manchester United, which we believe is what they're going to do. Now, there was no loan fee attached to this contract, to this situation. So essentially what they're doing is paying a £5 million loan fee and sending him back. But there was no loan fee at the beginning of this. So it's an interesting one to look at because on the surface you think, hang on a second. Now, there were conversations between Jadon Sancho's representatives and those people at Chelsea, but he has to fit in to their wage structure. Now, there are reports he's earning around £250,000 to £300,000 a week, which wouldn't fit into what Chelsea are doing. So therefore, go back to Manchester United. Unfortunately, we can't find some common ground with your wages, and therefore we'll pay the fine or the fee, the £5 million fee, and that's where we are with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. This man, no question, played big games for Chelsea, started the Europa Conference League final, was a big part of that squad, ended up with some silverware, interest from Europe. I'm sure someone will come knocking.
Will they, though, James? Because, as you said, it's got a bit congested of the players that United don't want. Antony, Rashford, Sancho. So what's next?
I think it's certainly a problem that Manchester United could have dealt without this summer. I think when they bid farewell to him last summer, there was a real hope that this deal and this chapter would come to a close for Manchester United because it simply hasn't worked out. United spending more than £70 million to bring Jadon Sancho to the football club. Think of all those matches that he missed when they were paying that immense salary for him not to be in the squad because of what happened under Erik ten Hag. He impressed at Borussia Dortmund on loan. He did well in spells at Chelsea. I think, in a way, it's worked for all parties because there is still a market value there for Jadon Sancho. United, they are expecting offers for him in this transfer window. It's understood a number of clubs in the Premier League and Europe have approached Jadon Sancho's representatives about what the conditions of the deal could look like. I think there is a preference from all parties, Jadon Sancho and Manchester United, for this chapter to officially come to a close this summer. But you can't rule out another loan deal, potentially, in this window. If clubs aren't going to be willing to match those wages, and let's be honest, over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, has Jadon Sancho merited the wages that he's expecting this window? That's a conversation to be had. It's worth pointing out here, there's no suggestion this would be the case, but Ruben Amorim hasn't had a chance to work this footballer yet because he left before he came in.
Good point.
I'm not suggesting he could be integrated, but there could be a situation where if they can't get rid of him, he's on those wages, then they have to get him involved in their plans because it is costing United a serious amount of money to have a player like that not doing anything if they can't get rid of him. Very early on this transfer window, we understand United are expecting offers, but definitely one to bear in mind.
All right, so what we do know is that Chelsea may have wanted him, but they've given him back. If they don't want Jadon Sancho, do they want Jamie Gittins?
And there's an interesting link there as well because he's at Borussia Dortmund. Actually, Jamie Gittins was at Chelsea as a child. Spent a bit of time there as a child as well.
And at City, wasn't he?
In Reading, yeah. And he went from City to Borussia Dortmund. And he was really impressive. He broke records in the Champions League earlier on this season. Chelsea are considering to make a move to sign him in this window. There was interest in January. Didn't quite happen. Just 20 years of age. A target in January. But there's around 8 or 9 different attacking wide players Chelsea are looking at in this transfer window. Valued at around £50 million from Borussia Dortmund. Was a first-team player for the first half of this season. He scored 11 goals before mid-January. Just 1 since then. He's not quite fit in under the new manager. He's been left frustrated, so you can understand why this would be something that could happen this summer. But Jamie Gittins certainly is a player who's a target for Chelsea. We wait to see if that materialises in terms of a concrete bid and an offer.
Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, weeks and weeks ago said Chelsea are going to be busy. They're going to go for a centre-back, they're going to go for a striker and a wide player. Didn't mention a goalkeeper, but let's mention a goalkeeper. Mike Maignan being linked. Is he going?
Well, this deal looks like it could definitely get done. There's a really good chance that it could happen. And what is very interesting here, Mark spoke before about the Chelsea wage structure and the way they've looked to attack this window and previous windows, getting players in young on long contracts. Well, this doesn't quite fit in with that. The French number 1, Mike Maignan, 29 years of age, arguably regarded as one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Chelsea already have a number of goalkeepers. They've got the likes of Kepa that are coming back following his loan spell at Bournemouth at the end of this season. But it is felt like an area that they can make an upgrade. I've spoken to Enzo Maresca a few times this season. He's always defended his goalkeepers. He's already defended the likes of Rob Sanchez and Philip Jorgensen. But it's felt from afar that that's an area that Chelsea can improve, despite the fact this doesn't quite fit in with their project in terms of signing players very young. They have the youngest average age of a squad in the Premier League last season. But this could be a serious upgrade to what they have right now.
Yeah, all right, we're going to take a break. So much to fit in. We've talked about Chelsea because they're going to the Club World Cup. What about Manchester City? They're getting busy. They're off to the Club World Cup. We heard from the boss. He said, we've got signings in mind. We're going to get them done. We'll talk about City next. See you in a moment. It's a transfer show. You know we've got breaking news for you. Both boys got breaking news. Mark, do you want to start? What have you got?
Yes, some big breaking news from AFC Bournemouth, and Bournemouth fans will be concerned about this one because it's about the centre-back Ilya Zabani, the Ukrainian international who's been superb, played a real starring role for the Cherries over the course of this season, and since joining from Shakhtar Donetsk has been outstanding. The problem is playing well and people are going to start talking, and that's exactly what's happened because some breaking news in the last few moments is that PSG have made an inquiry. PSG, Champions League winners, have made an inquiry for Ilya Zabani. There's been no formal offer at this stage, and obviously Bournemouth very reluctant to sell a player that's been so important to them. And when you look at that centre-back partnership for the last 20, 25 games of this season, the record-breaking season for Bournemouth, Dean Howson one side, Ilya Zabani on the other. Dean Howson's gone to Real Madrid already, we know that. Bournemouth won't want to lose the other key man of that centre-back partnership. So, yeah, big breaking news there. But important to stress, no formal offer, just an inquiry.
And before I go to you, they could lose Kirkes as well, but we'll come to that.
Calm down.
Sorry,
Bournemouth fans are having a meltdown.
What have you got, James?
Really interesting news this. Newcastle United are interested in signing João Pedro from Brighton. He's got a number of admirers in the Premier League and Europe. Newcastle, one of those clubs they're looking to strengthen because they are once again in the Champions League again next season. There's an influx of money that comes with that as well. Crucially, they are still determined to keep hold of Alexander Isak. He's got 3 years left on his contract, but when you look at the other strike options there, Callum Wilson, his contract comes to an end at the end of this month. There's no guarantees that he'll sign an extension on that deal. He's 33 years of age. Now, if he does depart, Callum Wilson, then they clearly need other options in that strike area. João Pedro could be one of those, but it's not a case of João Pedro comes in, that means Alexander Isak leaves. I think ideally they want both of those two players if they're to make a bid and bring in João Pedro. Crucially, Fabian Hertzler spoke towards the end of last season because you remember he missed the final games of the season because of a disciplinary issue. Well, Fabian Hertzler said they have no desire to sell Pedro and he's looking forward to working with him at the start of next season. Let's wait and see where he is in August because there's plenty of interest in this player because he's been an absolute revelation in the 2 years he's had it in that Brighton shirt. We saw what he did at Watford. He's gone on to the next level at Brighton. We wait to see where he is next season. Newcastle have an interest in signing João Pedro.
OK, thank you, gentlemen. James just said, didn't he, we'll see where he is. We know where Quaveen Kelleher's going to be. He's going to Brentford. Is this a deal that works for all parties?
I think it's sensational. I think it's an absolutely outstanding deal for Brentford. Once again, they always seem to get things right in the market. They're one of those football clubs with Benham, the owner, that's very forward-thinking, very heavily reliant on data, and they do really well with their transfer activity. Now, this is a 26-year-old goalkeeper, Mike, that's won the Premier League and the Champions League, and they're getting him for £12.5 million that potentially could rise to £18 million. He signed a 5-year deal, been confirmed by the club today with a year option as well in Brentford's favour. He's a Republic of Ireland international, and he said he's excited about the project. He's excited about playing for Brentford and playing under Thomas Frank, who was a key reason why he joined. Be interesting to see what happens there, but no question, brilliant signing for Brentford.
James, so he's gone to Brentford because Flecken's out. Real quickly, is that deal done yet?
It's done, confirmed this afternoon. He'll team up with Erik ten Hag, who's just joined Bayer Leverkusen as head coach. £11 million for the 31-year-old. He's been a revelation in a Brentford shirt. He's done really well. But the thing is, he wanted to move closer to home. He wanted to play in the Champions League. This is a deal that works for all parties. They make a massive profit on a player who did brilliant service for 2 years, and they have potentially upgraded in the form of Kelleher. So a really good bit of business. Wish him work, Bayer Leverkusen.
Mark, I want to talk Man City with you. Tijani Reinders. Tell us about him.
Yeah, 26-year-old, 10 goals, 4 assists in Serie A this season. He's also a Netherlands international and someone that Manchester City are very much interested in. They're in dialogue with AC Milan at the moment. The problem is the price, bit of a sticking point because AC Milan wants around 70 million euros, which is around 59 million pounds. We know that they're in the market for a number 8, someone that can be that link up between Rodri and the front 3. This man would absolutely tick all of those boxes. He only joined AC Milan a couple of years ago, but he's shown to be one of the key men when it comes to midfielders in Serie A this season. So you can understand why Pep Guardiola would be interested in him. At the minute, dialogue continues between the two clubs.
That's Reinders. Tell us about Cherki, because we know City are interested in him as well.
Yeah, they're hoping to get players in before the Club World Cup, but they're not going to do deals just for the sake of them if the deal isn't right. But in terms of Cherki, there is definitely real interest there. Liverpool, it's reported that Arne Slot held talks with him last week, but it looks like he's a player that Manchester City want to sign. 2 Rayans in this transfer window potentially, Rayan Cherki and Rayan Aït-Nouri. It doesn't look like Florian Wirtz is going to go to Manchester City, so this is what looks like it's going to be the next one in line. Really impressed actually in the Europa League, coming up against Manchester United earlier on this season. They want to sign him and Rayan Aït-Nouri in this transfer window. Aït-Nouri's just got 1 year left on his contract at Wolves. Believed to be a deal worth around £50 million if City can get it done.
Good business, Mark, for City?
I think so. We have to remember that City's rebuild started in January. They spent over £100 million to try and rejuvenate the squad, to add some more players, to keep things going. And actually, what you're seeing now is the continuation of that. Now, the chairman has actually said he wants to get all the business done nice and early so that they are ready to go, of course, for the Club World Cup, a competition that Pep Guardiola wants to win, and it means having a strong squad.
Of course he wants to win it. All right, there's loads going on Lots more happening in this window. We're back at 7 o'clock. The boys are back at 7 o'clock. We've got a deep dive into Bruno Fernandes. We'll hear from Bruno Fernandes as well. We'll also talk Liverpool and Arsenal. So they're off for a cup of tea and a sit down.